If there is an energy crisis, this is where it begins, underground, where a finite amount of petroleum remains. We found most of the accessible oil in Texas. The days of shallow wells and spindle-top gushers may be gone forever. The state's first well was only 106 feet deep. Last year, the average was more than 5,000 feet. That's a mile straight down. Wildcatters don't mind digging deeper in search of oil. Last year, a crew in Pecos County drilled more than 5.5 miles down, and ironically, that well produced nothing. At $16 a foot drilling cost, that gets expensive. There are several ways more petroleum can be acquired, but they are all expensive. That means Americans will be paying more and more for petroleum in years to come. The first is offshore drilling, where plenty of oil lies beneath the sea. Building a platform on the sea and suspending a drill through 1,000 feet of sea, though, raises the cost of producing that oil. The second is finding the less accessible oil here under dry land. If the U.S. Geological Survey is right, then we found only about 20% of the oil under the United States. But here again, we're talking about the high cost of finding the oil and then getting to it, which becomes more difficult every day. A third way to increase oil production is to make the best of the oil we have already tapped. Not long ago, oil men were abandoning wells with 90% of the oil still down there. Since only about 1 well in 10 will flow by itself, pumps like these have become a familiar sight to Texans. They can pull up quite a bit of the oil, but pumping alone won't come close to getting all of it. In recent years, oilmen have begun pumping hydrochloric acid into the ground to etch a network of pores, allowing the oil to flow to the well shaft. Another way is to build up pressure by injecting gas or steam into the ground, which pushes the oil toward the shaft. All of these methods are expensive, but in some fields, up to 80% of the oil is being recovered. With more money and new technology, that percentage may be increased. So that's the problem. There's plenty of oil, but finding it and extracting it is becoming more expensive, and you, the consumer, will have to pay for it. This is the La Gloria refinery, a small independent oil refinery in Tyler. It is one of 40 refiners in Texas. The crude oil is distilled here, eventually to become products like gasoline, kerosene, jet fuel, or fuel oil. If anyone feels the energy crunch in the refining business, it will be the independents, which don't own their own wells. They buy crude oil wherever possible, from independent drillers or from major oil companies like Texaco or Shell, which own wells. Independent drillers don't always have the resources to find that hard-to-reach oil, and as the market tightens, they will be less inclined to sign long-term supply agreements with the independent refiners. And also, as the market tightens, the major oil companies will keep more and more crude oil for themselves and sell less and less to the independent refiners. All of this will make life a little more difficult for the independent refiner, but at the moment, not critically so. Independent gas stations send trucks to these refineries to pick up the gasoline and take it back to local filling stations. By doing this, several middlemen are eliminated, so gas prices are lower at the station. So the lifelines of independent dealers in Dallas and Fort Worth are tied to the independent refineries like this one here in Tyler. If the independent refiners suffer from uncertainty, then so do major oil company refineries, but from a different sort of uncertainty. How much oil will the U.S. import from the Middle East this year and during the years of the anticipated energy crisis? Arabian oil contains sulfur, and to refine the Arabian oil, American refineries will have to spend vast sums revamping their existing equipment. The consumer will pay for these technical alterations. Today, refineries are running at capacity, and with the anticipated rise in petroleum demand, more refineries will be needed. But some oil company officials admit privately that their companies will not build any more refineries until the federal government becomes more specific about what sorts of gasoline will be needed to meet auto emission standards yet to be set permanently. So here at the refining stage, question marks abound. And when the answers come, they're sure to contain plenty of dollars and cents. Prices are already beginning to climb at independent gas stations in Dallas. These stations are dependent upon major oil companies for gas. In coming months, that may be a diminishing source. Then, too, the independent refiners must continue to supply. Some of the major oil companies are running ads urging motorists to take an hour extra to drive from Dallas to Houston to save several gallons of gas. But it seems unlikely that this summer at least Americans will be willing to take an hour extra for that drive to save a little bit of gas or to turn off their auto air conditioning in the sweltering heat. Of course, if a cutback is to succeed, commerce and industry will have to use less petroleum because they use more than consumers do in homes and in autos. That seems unlikely too. Instead, we the consumers will probably choose to pay the price, the higher price for getting more oil out of the ground, for refining it, and here at the gas station for buying it. When the first American oil well was drilled just before the Civil War, some folks worried that the oil which kept the Earth's axle greased was being drained off. Little do they know that their then ridiculous suspicion really isn't so funny today. Petroleum keeps the American economy moving, and to think that someday we just might not have enough is a frightful thought. Frightful enough for us to apply some of that good old expensive American technology to head off the crisis.